What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Combat Corporation, your source of combat sports. I'm your host, Alec Postmaster Tomorrow, and today I have a gear review on the Windy BGVH Classic Muay Thai Training Gloves. Alright folks, as always, I'm incredibly excited to bring you yet another gear review, and Happy New Year to you. 2026 is officially here, and I wanted to kick off the year with a series of Muay Thai glove reviews that I unboxed about 7 months ago. You guys wanted me to unbox 4 major Muay Thai brands that you considered absolute classics, and you don't get much more classic than these. These are the Windy BGVH Classic Muay Thai Training Gloves in the leather outer shell, and when I say you can't get much more classic, it's because Windy is the OG of Muay Thai brands. What do I mean by that? Basically, in 1951, Windy became the first registered or official Muay Thai specific brand, meaning that they made gear specifically for the sport of Muay Thai in Thailand. And you might be wondering, well, were they using gloves before or shin guards or things like that? They were, but they were not made by a specific brand. Long story short, very similar to Western style boxing, Thailand used to be just like, let me start that over. Similar to Western style boxing, where it used to be bare knuckle and it was considered prize fighting and pretty barbaric until gloves were really introduced to it since the markets of Queensberry, whether it be in the UK or the United States. Basically, gloves were not introduced as a mandatory thing till the late 1800s, early 1900s, and virtually the same thing happened in Thailand, only you didn't see gloves get incorporated until the mid-1930s or early 1940s. And basically what it was, there was a king, I cannot remember his name, I know his suffix was the 7th, and he saw Western culture, and he liked what happened with boxing because boxing became a national pastime in the United States, and they didn't import from different countries, like winning had already become a thing in Japan, so in the same continent of Asia. Cleto Reyes was around since 1945, so it was still kind of new. Everlast was in since 1910, but basically what the King of Thailand said was, we can make Muay Thai more of a general sport. It'll actually increase tourism. He thought it would increase tourism, which obviously nowadays you look at that. He thought it would become a national pastime, bring more money to the country, and of course become part of the culture. And look what it's done since. So he, just like the United States at one point, contracted out to different leather workers. They would make gloves for Muay Thai bouts. They would make shin guards, pads, anything you can think of. And it wasn't until 1951 where Windy came around and said, we will make the gear for everything. And really you didn't get another Thai brand until Fairtex, which I think came out in 1957 or 8. There's also Muay came around in 1960, but in general, Windy's been around, considered to be the oldest specific Muay Thai brand, which is really cool. Windy is not nearly as popular as it used to be way back when, but it is still a fan favorite and what most people consider the OG, because really in a lot of ways the BGVH or the BGL, which is the lace-up version of this glove, is considered to be one of the first actual models of Muay Thai gloves, and you will see multiple similarities in virtually every Thai glove you use with this one, which I think is really cool. Real quick though, because some of you guys in the know might understand about this, but some of you might not be. And to answer it right off the jump, and I'll explain it all. This will be a bit of a long intro. You know, I always put the timestamps for you guys, but basically these are 100% authentic Windies. And you might be wondering, Al, why'd you let us know that? Basically, a couple years ago when I did the review on the Pro Line gloves by Windy, I had a lot of people comment and say that these were not authentic Windies because of the website that I posted. And I found out there were a lot of different websites out there saying that they were Windy. In fact, they were not. They were illegitimate. Very similar things are going on with the brand Twin Special. They had a really big hoax with Twins USA. You had two brothers that basically were making Pakistan-made gloves and selling them as authentic Twins, and that's not at all what it was. So Twins doesn't even ship to the US. In fact, some US retailers will not have an option online to have you buy their stuff. And similar things happened with Windy. What I did find out though is that I wound up talking to a guy that runs part of the Windy facility, and he said these were 100% upfront authentic Pro Lines, which is good. So I'm glad I got that figured out. And the person brand that I ordered these from, the BGVH, actually only deals directly with Wendy's factory. There are still several websites out there. For me, I just deal with a authentic Muay Thai like retailer like Knock Muay Wholesale, or in this case, the Fighter's Boutique. I was able to call him and ask him questions to get through all the confusion, and he was able to say, yes, these are authentic Wendy's. I only deal with the factory directly, and that's exactly why I trust the Fighter's Boutique. So shout out to him, and I'll post a link where I got these in the description below. The other thing you might be wondering, years ago, I also reviewed my very first Thai glove on the channel, and that was the Wendy traditional Muay Thai training glove. So you might be thinking, what's the difference? Well, basically this in essence is kind of a BGVH, but this is licensed through Combat Sports Incorporated. So yes, like Ringside Combat Sports. This is made by Wendy, but licensed by Combat Sports. And when I talked to a lady who got really annoyed with me over the phone for a half hour, and she flat out said, "Sir, I've answered all your questions," because I ask way too many questions. I talk too much, as you can tell. They basically like what Wendy made for them way back in like the mid 90s, like 1995 or early 2000s. And they found that their MMA clientele really liked Wendy equipment. So basically their bag mitts, their wall bags, the heavy bags that you can all get off Combat Sports is still made by Wendy. It's just licensed through Combat Sports. And from what Wendy also told me, because I reached out to them, their exact words were, Combat Sports has liked the gloves made the same way for almost 30 years. So we continue to make it for them, and they keep buying it from us, basically is what it is. So at the end of the day, same exact glove for me. This one's a little bit smaller. This one's 16 ounces. This one's 18. You can also get a 20-ounce version called the Heavy Hitters, which I have, which is actually way bigger than this. But in general, they are virtually the same glove, just a little bit bigger in the hand compartment, and they're more made for Western audiences is what I'm to understand. But again, anything you get that is Wendy from Combat Sports, it was still handmade in Thailand at the same factory as the other Wendy products. That is what they told me as well. So with all that out of the way, I'm glad you know more about Wendy, as there could be some confusion, especially to some new buyers. And remember, I try to cover everything. Now, when it comes to the actual model of the glove that I have for you today, I got these in the black coloration, the hook and loop closure, and they are 16 ounces, okay? And you can get them in a bunch of different sizes. You can get them in 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 ounces. And if you count the Combat Sports versions, they do go up to 18 and 20 ounces. Just understand they are huge if you go that big. Most Thai gloves really just shrink in size. They don't really change all of the padding structure. It's just a smaller glove. So if you get an 8 or 10 ounce glove, it will be much smaller and fit more like a bag mitt compared to, say, this glove, which is a 16. You can also get them in lace-ups. However, it technically wouldn't be the BGVH anymore. It would be the BGL, which the BGVH, the V stands for Velcro, and then the L stands for lace-up is what you got there. But yes, they do have this available in lace-up closure, and also there's a completely different outer shell you can get. You can also get a microfiber outer shell version. The only difference is same exact glove, different outer shell instead of the leather here, but I like leather just a little bit more. So you have that, and then on top of it, the pricing is different. An average glove of the BGVH with the leather outer shell that I've seen goes from $140 to $160, depending on where you get it from, and then the microfiber one will go from about $80 to $120, depending on what limited edition colorways you have. So microfiber edition had like this really fancy black and silver one that I saw, that one for like 120 bucks, but the average one for about 80 to 100, depending on what color you got. Tons of colors available if you want to look into the different gloves as well. They have some fancy models with flames and stuff out there, but your generic colors, they got black, green, yellow, red. They have an orange out there from what I've seen. They have white, tan, retro colors. They have a bunch of different colors that you can look into. So overall, like a lot of other Thai gloves, since Wendy's been around for so long, you will have a good chunk of variety when it comes to the BVGH. But again, for your reference for the rest of the video, the exact model glove I have, 16 ounce black coloration in the hook and loop closure. Going into the actual look of the glove here, Wendy's logo is world renowned, and it always has that really cool look to it. It's one of the coolest looking logos for me. You have the Wendy in all black lettering there, but you have the gridded globe and you have the trademark right in the center there as well. But basically it has the white background. It makes it pop out and gives it that nice 3D effect. And I don't know if it comes out on the camera as much, but when I turn it that way, the light reflects off it really well. You can see all the natural, there you go, natural grain marks from the leather. So it gives you that really nice classic look. And the paint or the dye I should say, reflects really well. The leather reflects really well, and you can see you have the same black material on the thumb, the back of the punch surface as well. We come over to the thumb attachment, that's black, but it has a white backing. That's just where the threads come out a little bit. When we go over to the palm, you can see the grip bar is surrounded by some white stitching, as the rest of the palm is as well. It is white double line stitching, and of course black and white goes together really, really well. And that's what you have throughout the entirety of the palm. When we come over here to the wrist cuff itself, and I will read the other one so I don't mess it up. Let's see, make sure that focuses. Very good. Okay, it says made in Thailand, Windy Pro Fight Gear, and it has some Thai lettering, and you can see you have the map of Thailand right there. And just to prove it to you, it is stamped 16 ounces BGVH to prove that it is 16 ounces, and of course to tell you the model of the glove. What's also really cool, really cool attention to detail here, you have a cloth patch on the back of the wrist cuff. The Windy is in blue, that's like a deep royal blue, and then you have the globe this time is more in red, and then you also have a blue border, but you can also see that it is a white, but it's more like an ivory white color, almost like a bluish tint to it, but it's a really nice cloth patch. When we open the glove up, the Velcro itself is actually black, like most other gloves will be. You can see it's black on that side, and when we open it up, you have a little bit of synthetic leather at the base that is black, and you also have a black lining on the inside. So overall, really basic looking glove. I wanted to go with black because for me, Windy black is just the traditional color for me. I think it looks really sharp. Either that or a Windy red, like the red wall bags that we've had at the gym forever. When we go into the actual build of the glove, we can talk about the outer shell being made out of a really nice top grain cowhide leather, and it smells super sharp, feels really smooth to the touch, and it is stretched pretty tight over the padding, as most Thai gloves are. There's still a good amount you can pull off it. It's not an exuberant amount, but there's still a good amount, which means that the stitching will catch a lot easier. The more material you have to work with, the more it'll catch, which is always good. But in general, it feels really good, really soft leather around the whole glove. And top grain, remember, is usually the second best leather that you're going to get. There's full grain, which is just the animal hide itself, and it virtually has no imperfections if you have a good top grain leather or full grain. But what happens with top grain leather is they basically shave all the imperfections off so it's more uniform. You can still see all the natural grain, I can't say natural today, the most natural grain marks throughout, and that's just basically like the skin marks, kind of like how you have like marks throughout your skin here. Same thing here. That's basically what grain is when it comes to leather. All that nice natural creasing. And again, very soft leather. Most Thai leather is very soft, has a nice sharp clean scent to it. Smells really nice actually. When we come to the padding of the glove itself, you have one solid mold at the top. That means that the thumb, the knuckles, the back of the hand, side of the hand is all one solid mold. But you have 3 layers, and that's usually what you get with most Thai gloves. And actually, Windy is credited again with kind of making that classic 3-layered mold. And basically what the 3 layers are in this glove, you have a base of EVA foam, which is a closed cell foam to protect your knuckles, is what you see in a lot of bad gloves, but a lot of gloves put it at the bottom, so you cradle your knuckles more, and it actually keeps the glove shape. So this really curved shape that you see is the EVA foam, keeping it in that nice shape. That's what keeps the mold together. The middle is a latex, which derives from a rubber tree, gives you that nice pop and crack, and it usually recoils off, protects the knuckles a little bit. And then the top layer is an open cell high density foam, and in this case it is high density. Most people will just say high density, but remember, high density usually means, we'll just word it this way, it's a little bit firmer, a little bit more thick, I guess you could say. Mid density would be a little bit softer, and then low density would be very soft foam. In this case, it is a high density foam. And usually what happens with Windy, they're very well known for this. It's more of a rounded padding, so it creates a little bit more distance between your knuckles and the target. But the top layer is a somewhat firm, high density foam, softer than the rest of the glove, but when you push in, you can notice that it's actually really resisting me here. And when I push in like this, you see unlike other gloves that completely bunch in, it wants to cradle right around the middle of my knuckles. And you can see how it just curls and balls in. On the side where I'm pushing here, if you ever get these, it's very firm at the base. That is that EVA foam layer that you have going on there. It's going to be a little bit thicker towards the knuckles because that's really where that 3rd layer is going to be. Odds are you have the top soft layer and then the latex in the middle, and you can actually feel that when you put your hand on the inside, whereas the base, you have that firm EVA foam. When we talk about the thumb positioning, we can go ahead and talk about it being that classic tie shape. The thumb's on the outside, so you can work clinch really well. And of course, the wrist is separate from the rest of the glove because you want to work a good clinch. The thumb is pretty soft compared to the rest of the glove, actually. You would think it'd be firmer, but it's actually softer than I'd say actually the knuckles. The knuckles do break in pretty quick, but they're still pretty firm compared to some other gloves out there. The point of the fingers are really stiff as well, but the thumb in general towards the top is soft. However, the base of the thumb, very hard. That's where you can actually feel the EVA foam. I'd say it's a very firm scale is what I'd say. So your thumb definitely feels the hard foam at the base of it. And you have that at the base of the wrist as well. Again, you can see the glove is split into two different parts. You have the base of the wrist, then you have the actual foam mold itself. And the EVA foam also extends down to the wrist here. The entirety of the wrist has a little bit like a 1/4 inch of EVA foam, and that's about as firm as the bottom of the thumb. That's so it can hug to your wrist easier, keep the glove in a nice shape, and also counterbalance the glove being so heavy towards the top. The one thing about the EVA foam too, it does kind of help the glove from snapping down too much on your wrist and snapping up on your wrist a lot more. You can notice it's actually a lot harder for me to crease up on the wrist because the back of the padding is stopping that from happening. But going down, if you ever worry about your wrist kind of bending a bit, it would happen just a touch in this glove if you don't have good proper punching technique. So if wrist support is a big thing for you, most tie gloves are not a fan favorite when it comes to wrist support. That's just to be expected. When we go ahead and talk about the palm, the grip bar is about as soft as the thumb too. It's not too soft, it's not too firm. The top of the thumb, I should say. So it's right in the middle there. Again, the back of the thumb here is pretty hard. And actually the thumb piping right on the inside, this part is called the piping, is really firm. So I don't like how it feels because it puts a lot of pressure on that pressure point right at the pistol grips, I call it, right in the middle. And that will actually kind of wear your hand out because that is actually a key pressure point in your hand. I don't really know what vein is there, but I know whenever I wrap my hands, I always try and make sure that's covered and I'm not over squeezing at all times, and sometimes you feel like you have that there. So that is a pretty firm thumb piping there. You don't have a ton of padding on the side. There's just a little bit of EVA foam here to catch some kicks and to drill maybe a little bit, but it's more to counterbalance weight on this side of the glove. It doesn't really do much at all, to be honest. All you have is basically a thin layer of soft leather, and it is still a good quality leather. You have double line stitching throughout the entirety of the palm, and not a stitch is frayed, which is absolutely awesome. And when we go back to the side of the wrist, you can see that the Velcro patch does kind of come off at the corners a bit. It's not too sharp, but it would for sure rub against some sparring partners if that's ever a concern of yours. But in general, not the biggest problem. We go ahead and talk about the lining. Like a lot of tie gloves, they use a leather or synthetic leather base. To me, this feels, and funny enough, sounds more like a synthetic leather, and you can kind of hear that there. And it has more of a synthetic leather scent to it. So it's not actual leather, which a lot of gloves do that. They have an actual leather top, but they don't have an actual leather inside here. Some do, some don't. In this case, they do not. And then the rest of the lining is just your basic nylon. The one thing about the lining when I put the glove on that I don't like is it bunches up a lot towards the tip of the finger. So even now I really have to work my fingers on the inside and crawl it in there. And when I strap it on my wrist, it's definitely staying pretty tight, but it's not the most comfortable fit on the planet. It's very stiff up by the fingers. It opens up somewhat wide here. The thumb's still kind of in a more like fixed position. Some boxers may be worried about thumbing the eye, but honestly, it's so soft at the tip. I've never once smashed my thumbs here. And on top of it, it tucks behind pretty well. But the one thing I don't like is I have to work so hard to open my hand here to get clinch. So if I'm going for like arm control of any kind, top of the head, back of the head, shoulders, or I'm trying to punch for underhooks, overhooks, whatever it might be, the clinch in these gloves is actually not as good as I wish it was. Because I feel like that padding is so rounded to protect your knuckles a little bit more that it actually prevents the glove from opening. So for me, the foam at the base is kind of hard, and that's what's stopping that from happening. You have the softer foam at the top and the middle, and again, when I mentioned you can kind of feel that pocket of latex on the back of your knuckles, you can feel it starting from like here up to your fingers, and then it stops right at the tip. And at the tip of your fingers, you can feel that hard EVA foam, which again makes it hard to kind of open. A lot of times with Thai gloves, I think it's just a me thing at this point. My hands do tend to crawl out, but you know what? That grip bar is there, believe it or not, to grab here, so you can still punch safely. If you ever feel like your hand's crawling out, I just prefer to have my fingers at the tip, as most do. But in this case, lines your hand up pretty well. It doesn't over pronunciate like the curve down here, but I do get concerned for some that are new that are going to go blast and then their wrist is going to curve right down. Your wrist does not curve back that much at all, but naturally with a Thai glove, you want the wrist to curve down just a little bit. That way you can grab and clinch and curve like the head down like this and move it. Say if you're trying to deliver a strike of some kind, you're trying to deliver a knee, or you're trying to shoot them into an elbow or to an overhand if you're doing MMA or whatever it might be. That's basically what you got going on here. It opens about this far comfortably. Otherwise, trying to open it like that, getting that clinch, it's a little annoying. There's no breathe holes, so if you need that ventilation, it's not there, but I never really give any points off for that because your hand's going to sweat regardless. It's not really that big of a deal. The wrist support's not bad. I mean, I really got to struggle to pull that off my arm. But in general, the knuckle padding compared to some other Thai gloves, it's okay. It's not as good as some others that I've tried. I think that rounded padding definitely helps a little bit. But sometimes when you're punching, it feels like you're hitting the harder foam. And I'm not going to say that it hurts, but it doesn't protect it compared to say like a Yokow or the Rev Gear gloves I just reviewed. It definitely has more of that forward punching style, and it definitely gives you a nice feedback, almost like a puncher's glove, but it does dampen it a little bit. I wouldn't put it in that pillow category. I definitely say it's more of a pillow puncher's glove to a certain extent, but it definitely has more of those puncher's quality. Hence why I think a lot of Dutch kickboxers use this, because they love they love combination punching. They love smaller gloves that punch through the guard, and that's exactly what this glove is going to do. But in this case, let's go ahead and go into the bag work, see these gloves in action, and then we'll come back with my final thoughts. So when it comes to hitting the bags with these windy gloves, for one, I think they give, like I said, that awesome forward punching style. They want you to throw punches and bunches, and they lead into great Dutch kickboxing style. But as you can see, the clinch, like I said earlier, is not all that great with this glove. It doesn't open up all that well. And when you do punch, you don't necessarily feel the bag like your knuckles are going through, but you definitely feel like a harder surface, like you're punching the hard EVA foam on the inside of the glove. I love that you're able to throw punches and bunches in these. The wrist support's okay. The knuckle padding's not bad, but definitely not the best glove if you want an overly supportive Thai glove. When it comes to the look of these gloves, again, they just scream classic. That windy logo pops right out at you, and the actual grid globe design really shines when it comes to the actual logo of the gloves. Again, they don't open up all that well, but I think the black coloration just looks super, super sharp. I like the blue contrast when it comes to the wrist cuff, the wrist pads there. They're really nice gloves to look at and super classic. All right, folks, my final verdict here for the Windy BGVH Classic Muay Thai Training Gloves is, this is to me what I would call a needle mover glove. And what I mean by that is, this is a perfect glove for you to try if you want to try different Muay Thai gloves. Like if you've tried a Fairtex BGV1, which most people have, or a twin special glove, and you want to try something different, definitely a glove for you to look into. However, for me, I would tell you to get something like this first, because it checks most boxes off, but if you don't like it for one way or the other, it will point you in the correct direction. So what I mean by that is, say like you want a glove that has more padding than this and that feels softer on your hands. Well, this would needle move you towards, say, the Rev Gear gloves I just reviewed, or maybe even a Yokow or a Twin Special. But if you wanted to go more towards the puncher's direction, you'd go towards a Fairtex BGV1, or maybe you'd want a bigger glove like a Booster, or maybe you'd want a Primo or a Top King. Something like that is what you'd move more towards in this case of this glove, or something way softer like a Taizmai, whatever it might be. So for me, it is a perfect needle mover, and it is definitely what I would call like the godfather of the Thai gloves, But is it the best Thai glove I've ever used? No. It's almost like, and it's not an insult when I say it, it's like your generic Muay Thai glove. Very similar to some original MMA gloves out there, like I talked about the old Wano gloves that I reviewed. It was the very first UFC glove for the most part, the Boxergenics ones, but it was basically the start to the generic MMA glove that we all know today. Can't knock it because it kind of created the design, and that's basically what you have with the BGVH. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about the things that I like, some things I changed, and then go into the actual rating itself. Talking about the things I like about the glove, first and foremost with Windy, the one thing that you will always find, they are unkillable. They will last you a very, 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 very long time. Even their combat sports stuff, no joke, this is a true story. We had a guy that did the fitness MMA class at our gym since I think 2005, and he only stopped like 3 years ago because he was just a little bit too old and he didn't want to do it anymore. But he did it for almost 20 years, and he had a pair of Windy bag mitts that he bought from Combat Sports years ago. No joke, that whole time, because he took care of it, the same exact bag mitts that he used to hit the bags with, and granted it was like 2 or 3 times a week, but they lasted him a very, very long time, and they didn't even look, they looked used, they looked beat up, but they didn't look like they were on death's door like some other gloves that I've seen. There's also some other people I've seen that have had those wall bags, including our gym, those Windy wall bags in the gym since, again, the mid-2000s or earlier. There are some Windy Thai bags that I've seen, like the banana bags, the old blue ones with the old Thai logo on it. There's a gym about 3 hours from us that I trained at once, and they had that thing in there. And he says, I've had that thing since 2001 or something like that, he told us. I couldn't believe how like new it looked and how good it still looked. Nothing was peeling or anything on it. Same thing with like the combat sports ones that I've had. Granted, do I use gloves as much as others? Simply because I have a lot, not always, but I still put a ton of time and work into it, and they still feel the same as when I got them out of the box. So that's the one thing about Windy. They are durable, they are high quality, they are built to last, and you get your money's worth as far as that goes. So like the 140 to 160 that you're going to pay for these gloves, definitely worth it as far as the quality and durability. So they will last you a long time, which is awesome. Compared to some other gloves too, they do have some pretty good protective qualities as far as the knuckles go. I think that 3-layered foam mold that you have at the top is really solid. I think it's rounded off enough compared to some other Thai gloves where it does create that little bit of distance, but understand this, it is not the thickest padding on the planet, so you're still having that rounded part really bail you out of having that little amount of padding, is the way I would word it. It still protects the knuckles pretty good. I would wrap your hands up in these gloves if you're going to do that for a prolonged period of time. But I do think if you're a puncher that loves small gloves to punch through the guard and to really focus more on kickboxing and punching for maybe just like, I wouldn't use them if you're boxing, but if you're using them for like strict kickboxing, like K1 style kickboxing, I think this is a great glove to go for because they are a good little glove to punch through the guard and everything along those lines, which is always a good thing. I will say that there's a good enough amount of room on the inside of the hand compartment. If you want a bigger glove, there is the 18 and 20 ounce combat sports versions, which are pretty close to this glove. It's not really that much different at all. In fact, maybe I'll do a small video on that down the line. But in general, there's enough room on the inside to wrap your hands up pretty well. I'd say there's not quite enough room to do a gigantic knuckle guard if you need that extra protection. But in general, pretty good size hand compartment. Reasonably comfortable, not the most comfortable fit I've ever had, but reasonably comfortable, and again, very durable punching experience. Great for punchers. What would I change about the glove though? And there's more of that in my opinion. For one, yes, it's a great quality, but if you have brittle hands, for me, sometimes I just feel like because the padding is so thin and you don't necessarily feel your knuckles go through because that padding does stop it a bit, but it feels like you're punching the hard padding on the inside, and it does create some unnatural pressure on the knuckles that I felt before. And on top of it, the wrist support compared to some other Thai gloves is not that great. And I feel like the wrist strap could do a much better job of actually reaching around and putting the correct amount of pressure on your wrist while still having the flexibility for clinch. And speaking of clinch, as far as like a good Muay Thai glove goes for like specifically clinch, not the best I've ever used. They do not open up much past this comfortably, and you really have to use more of your forearm control with these gloves, which obviously forearm control with Muay Thai clinch is very important, and you want to learn how to steer with just your forearms if you're able to, in my opinion. But in that case, the clinch is just not the best that I've ever tried for a Muay Thai specific glove. That's why I said they're more geared towards, say, a K1 style kickboxer that's only going to be punching and kicking for the most part with a limited clinch. So I don't like how that is. The interior lining is very baggy and it gets in the way of my fingers all the time. The one thing I will say about that lining, though, it does dry out pretty quick, but most Thai gloves will. Obviously, it is a very humid country and that's where it's made. So Thai leather is also conditioned to that too. But in general, the lining is very baggy and it always moves around on me. I constantly fight my fingers to get on the inside and it drives me nuts. So I don't like that about the glove either. So comfort could be a little bit better. As far as the lining goes, I wish it fit a little bit more natural on the hand, as it feels really boxy compared to some other Thai gloves that fit, you know, not to use the cliche, but that fits more like a solid glove that slots on my hand. It feels like my hand's kind of roomy on the inside even when I wrap my hands. It feels more like a box where my hand's supposed to kind of try and stay into. And I do have reasonably sized hands. You know, some people might ask, give you an idea, I wear a size 14 ring. My hands are like, I think 10.5 to 11 inches around when you close it that way. I think I measured it once. I could be wrong in my measurement. I just took a tape measure and went like that. But I do have fat palms, shorter fingers, but fat fingers and fat palms, and that's basically what we got going on there. I wish the wrist support was a little better. I wish the padding, if they were going to go for a softer glove, I wish they just use a bit thicker padding towards the top to protect the knuckles a little bit more. But virtually, guys, it feels the same as this, and it's virtually the same comments that I said about this. Very plush towards the top, very hard at the base, and that's basically what you got going on, even with the Combat Sports version. So if you want a softer glove by Windy that does a better job on protecting the knuckles, I'd go with the Pro line. Still not the best clinch in this glove. Great, I mentioned this for amateur boxers, great for amateur boxing, amateur kickboxing. You also got that pad to catch each other's hands as well. But in general, it could do a little bit better of a job if you don't have brittle hands. I definitely wouldn't use it for specifically boxing, because I do think even if you had strong hands, it would wear you down eventually. So with that said, what would my final rating for these gloves be? Well, I do have to give them credit for being an OG glove and Windy being around for as long as they are. The durability definitely speaks volumes to Windy equipment, but there are just some things I would change as far as the protectability, the safety of the glove. It doesn't check all my boxes there. And I wish it was just a little bit more comfortable, especially with that lining just bunching up on you all the time. So with that said, if I were to put it in a tier category and give it a number out of 10, I would give these a solid 7 out of 10 and put it in that B tier for a good glove. I don't think it's poor. I don't think it's average. I think it's slightly above average. I think it's a nice, solid, good glove that you should all try if you want to try different Muay Thai gloves. It's definitely one of the ones I'm glad I finally tried out of the ones I unboxed about 7 months ago. And I'm glad I did get the original BGVH, but for me, felt very similar. If you've ever used the traditional ones by Combat Sports, felt very similar, just a little bit more compact in the hand. That's all I would say. But again, this is an 18-ounce glove. This is 16-ounce. If you want a more protective glove made by Windy that's just as durable and just as good, if not a little bit better, I'd say try the Pro line. I think this is great. And they have some other Thai models out there that I still need to try. I need to expand my Windy repertoire, if you would say. But in general, I enjoyed using these gloves. They're not my favorite Thai glove, but they are definitely a solid glove that I think everyone should give a try to if you're going to try some different Thai gloves, is the way I would, I know I repeat myself a lot, but that's the way I would word it. Wish it protected the knuckles just a little bit more. Wish the wrist support was a little bit better. Wish it fit on the hand a little bit more naturally. And I wish the lining was stretched a little bit more tight on the inside. And I wish that firm EVA foam padding was just a touch softer so it didn't wear out your hand quite as fast. But the positive blessing with anything with Windy is it will last you a very long time. My exact shelf life, I gave you a couple stories, but if you're going to beat these gloves up day in and day out, I'd still give them a solid shelf life. You're going to get your money's worth of at least 3 years is the way I would word it. Super well-made glove. But guys, I hope I answered all your questions. If I didn't, please comment below. And of course, let me know what you want to see reviewed next. I got some more Thai gloves coming up that you guys have requested for a while. And I got some other brands hidden in my back pocket as well that will be coming up in the near future. Please like and subscribe, as it goes a long way to help the channel, and hit the notification bell so you get some reviews just like these every time. Oh, sorry, you get notified every time you see reviews like these. And share this with your friend if they're looking for some new combat sports reviews as far as new gear, which I always go for gloves for the most part. I do have some other things, but of course, again, comment below, let me know. Follow me on all my social media pages. If I'm honest, I'm primarily just active on Instagram. I have a TikTok, don't really use it, but I'm active on Instagram, and a lot of people have been emailing me lately, so go ahead and hit me up on the email. I have my business site and stuff like that listed on my Facebook and in the description below. So I appreciate every single one of you guys for supporting this channel. As always, thank you so much for you choosing your source of combat sports, The Combat Corporation. I've been your host, Al the Postmaster Tomorrow, and as always, I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great day, everybody.